Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report. Ben Brown, Pat Westhoff, as well as Scott Brown rejoining us. All right, Pat, it's looking like we're not going to have a farm bill written by September 30th. That timeline is approaching very quickly. But if we do not get a farm bill written by that deadline, what type of impact will it have on producers?
Yeah, there's not a lot of direct producer impact on September 30th. We don't have a lot of important programs that affect farmers directly that are going to expire that quickly. The real problems come next spring.
Okay, so then talk about what are some of those potential problems next spring that if we do not still in the spring have a farm bill written, what implications?
Yeah, if there's no new farm bill and if Congress doesn't just simply extend the current farm bill, then we revert back to legislation written in 1949, and that's probably not where we want to be. So I think a lot of folks are hoping that we'll avoid that outcome one way or the other.
If we revert back to legislation from 1949, Scott, what industry do you think it hurts the most?
Well, I don't know if it hurts the industry the most, but it's the one maybe most affected. We talk about the dairy cliff quite often when we talk about permanent legislation, which is back to the old price support program. We're going to talk about milk prices that would be supported really at 4 or 5 times where they're at today. So much higher prices, good for producers, perhaps, those that are in the business. However, I think there's a long ways to implement permanent law. It's going to take USDA a period of time to try to implement permanent law. So I wouldn't expect right after the first of the year that'll be a big night and day difference. We'll just see how long it all plays out if, we don't do some extension that takes care of this implementation of permanent law.
Well, you mentioned a cliff, and what's fallen off a cliff has been whey demand to China. We have seen the impact there. But as you look at China right now and kind of the economic meltdown that we're watching, which industry do you think that impacts the most, Ben?
Oh, that's a great question. I'd probably turn to Scott and think some of our protein products. Just one, how big of a producer China is in some different protein categories, but then how much they import from the globe, how much we send to them in those protein sectors. Soybeans has been the dominant grain and oil seed that we've sent, and so that's always at risk, but we're finding some new demand here domestically that kind of changes our outlook in that market. Corn was the thing that we thought, for years we've said, can China continue to import corn like what they did 3 years ago, right? That was a big year when they came into the market. We sent prices higher, and we just haven't been able to materialize that. Part of the reason is growth in Brazilian corn production becoming a major competitor for us.
Well, that leads to my next question. As you look at Brazil and just the powerhouse that they've become on soybeans and now on corn, are you more concerned about the growing competition from Brazil or the potential economic fallout from China, Pat?
I think we know Brazil's going to be there. They're going to be a major competitor. So that one's probably not a major uncertainty right now. I think China's where the major uncertainty is at the moment. There's lots of questions about the Chinese economy, alluded to those. Whether they really see a sharp downturn in that economy is uncertain at this point. But if we do, all the problems that Ben and Scott talked about happen, and a lot more as well.
Pat or Scott, when we do the monthly Ag Economist Monthly Monitor, there's a question where you ask other economists, what is the one thing that's not being talked about enough that could impact ag over the next 12 months? What are economists telling you, Scott?
Well, so I think one of the things that we hear, consolidation, more generally as the volatility in these markets continue. What's it mean in terms of how production agriculture looks going forward? I think that's one of the issues. Of course, international pieces of that matter as well. What's going on in China? What's going on with Russia, Ukraine? All of those issues, I think, as well are added uncertainties that maybe at times aren't as covered as needed to be.
Well, we're kicking off College Roadshow, and I don't want to end on a negative note. So I want each of you to talk about what do you think is the biggest bright spot in agriculture that farmers and ranchers have to look forward to within the next 6 months. Ben?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to turn and say on the labor side, we've got some very talented people that are entering our ag industry. And to me, that's exciting because they're coming with fresh ideas and new perspectives that are really going to help drive this industry the next decade.
I like that. Pat?
I think we can always count on there being both pleasant and unpleasant surprises. So for a few of the pleasant ones, right? If you look back the last few years, all the demand shifts that have occurred because of external events that cost us to have the kind of prices we've had. I can't put my finger on which one of those is going to happen going forward, but there's always a good reason to hope for the future.
Scott?
I think for me, most exciting is cattle markets as we look ahead. We're talking about much tighter supplies. We're already talking about record prices. Not yet record profitability. Maybe that comes. But to me, the cattle markets are the big bright spot when you look at a number of the commodities that we're producing today.
Ben, Pat, Scott, I thank so much for you guys for joining us. Plus, we had Missouri Beef Industry Council, Missouri Corn, Missouri Farm Bureau, Missouri Farmers Care, Missouri Pork, and Missouri Soybeans. First for College Roadshow to have all of those Missouri industry groups here with us. It's obvious that Missouri's on a united front, and it's awesome to see. So thank you all. We need to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with much more U.S. Farm Report.